And as if that wasn't enough, he seated him at his right hand in heavenly places. Don't miss this piece. Some things, all things under his feet. And by the way, listen, if we are seated with him in heavenly places, which we read later on, guess what that means? Spirit of God, I pray that you move in this place this morning. I beg you this morning, more knowledge and understand theology and understand last days things, but that we may know Christ. Because when we know Christ, when we go from knowing him in our head to, all right, so we get to know God personally in salvation. We talked a little bit about this last week. When we begin to know God increasingly, so we know him personally when we say yes to him at the cross, and then we begin to know him increasingly, and that's what's known as sanctification. So we go from being, one day we're going to get to the place where we know him in perfection, and that's glorification. When we have our glorified body, we finally make it to heaven, and the things of the earth pass away, and we begin to spend all times. God's infinite. There's no beginning and no ending to God. Do you all agree with that this morning? Say amen. Okay. Well, as human beings, we have a beginning and we have an end. So we are what's called a look at the sand. And just imagine just a seagull picking up not a mouthful, but just one tiny grain of sand. And transferring that grain of sand from the coast on the east all the way out to the coast on the west. And when he gets the last tiny grain of sand from the shores on the east coast and transfers it to the west coast, eternity would have just begun. It's hard for us to comprehend. It's hard for us to kind of wrap our mind around eternity. But the Bible tells us that if we know Christ, we will be able to one day spend eternity with him in heaven. Thursday, I had the privilege of doing a memorial service for Miss Betty. Miss Betty passed away. Betty Redding passed away back in March. It doesn't seem like it's been that